Like they email me on a Friday and I get back to them on a Monday and they're like, oh yeah, we gave it away already. I actually don't want a client that needs me 24/7.
Ever feel like you're constantly choosing between the work that pays the bills and the creative projects that light you up? Today I'm sitting down with Carey Shaw, an incredible photographer and emerging filmmaker, to tackle the real struggles of balancing passion and profession in a creative career. In this episode, you'll learn how to carve out time for personal projects, set boundaries with clients, and why the work that excites you is actually the key to attracting the right opportunities. Carey also pulls back the curtain on the realities of editorial photography, the technical challenges of documenting art exhibitions, and how stock photography can create passive income. If you're a photographer or a creative looking to stay inspired, set better boundaries, and build a career on your terms, this episode is for you. Let's dive in. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks you for being
having
here.
Me. Yeah.
I'm excited because I've been a long-time admirer of your work.
You.
Yes. And this is the first time we're meeting.
Yeah.
Which is nuts. And also very exciting. But how about just share a little bit about yourself and who you are?
I'm a photographer.
Mm-hmm. And videographer, correct?
A little bit. I'm starting into that.
Okay.
Yeah. Not commercially or anything like that, but I just finished my first short film.
I did see that for the Ramey Art Gallery, which it was fabulous.
Yeah.
I saw you post that and I was like, well done. Yes.
It was very exciting.
I love your work. I feel like it's so unique. You have like a fresh perspective and definitely your own look within our city and province for sure. Even West, I don't know, Canada. I feel like you stand out.
You.
So
thanks.
Yeah. Anyways, continue.
Just finished that. So we're in the festival season right now. I did it with my partner, Steph Krawczyk. And then other than that, I do a lot of work with artists, photographing artwork, documenting art galleries, exhibitions. I love editorial work, magazine editorial, like journalistic. I don't get to do it a lot, but I love it. And I'm just trying to do more of my own work.
How did you get started? When did you start?
I took a pinhole class, I think in elementary school, and then I was really interested in it. So I started taking a pinhole photography course at like a local art center in high school. And I loved it. So I lived in Regina. And I did 2 years at the U of R in fine arts, but I wasn't learning the photography I wanted to learn. So then I ended up going to the Alberta College of Art and Design, which is now the Alberta University of the Arts, I think, and got my degree in the photographic arts. And kind of started shooting right out of school.
Would you consider yourself more of a fine art photographer or editorial photographer?
I want to be. I would love to do more of my own work. And that's something I struggle with all the time, is finding the balance between doing the work that pays the bills, that I still love, and then doing my own work.
I struggle with that too. Yeah. I love the creative work, and I love creating content now, and I love the podcast. Yeah. And it's like, okay, now I really have to think about how I'm going to support my extracurricular activities.
And the paying work, unfortunately, comes first because we have to pay the bills, and takes up a lot of time.
It does.
And so it's really hard to just make sure you give yourself the time to do that. I struggle with that all the time.
Well, the trouble that I find is that I'm just exhausted. It's like, I'd rather just, watch some TV on the couch.
100%.
Unless I book it. I find that I have to make the space for myself to like just put it in the calendar. And oftentimes I'll even procrastinate doing that. And then it ends up being this last minute shoot. And it's like, oh, I wish I had more time to do this. But then again, when I'm doing it, it's like, oh, I'm so glad that I'm doing this. And it just feels good.
Yeah. It's like we have to plan it like it's an important client,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And it is.
It is.
And I say this a lot, and it's always the creative work that we do, like what inspires us and what's unique to us in the art that we create that attracts those clients.
Exactly.
The paid work. So it is important to do. It's really like an aspect of marketing your business.
And I think it makes all the work that we do better.
Well, yeah, because you're practicing
Exactly.
too, and learning.
And I find that if I'm not doing my stuff, I always just call it my stuff,
Yeah.
I don't love the other stuff as much. And I get angry at myself that I'm not doing all the other stuff. So it just puts me in this
A bit of resentment.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you find you do a lot of the same sort of work? Who are some of your clients?
I kind of have groups. So with art galleries, I do a lot with art galleries, with documenting exhibitions and just events and stuff. And then people. So a lot of headshots. I don't do weddings anymore or even that many lifestyle sessions. It's mostly clients that I've had for like 15 years that I continue to do that.
Okay.
And then a little bit of editorial work. But those jobs...
Never pay?
They don't pay.
And they're your
Dear
favorite
photographers,
jobs.
they don't pay. I know. It's
Oh,
tricky,
gosh.
but those are the ones that I love the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally get that. Let's start near the beginning. So you finished school, and then so photography was something that you knew you wanted to pursue.
Yeah.
And then what was next for you? How did you kind of make it happen?
I came out of school and I started doing, it was called Fast Forward. This was in Calgary. And it was like, what's the local paper here?
Star Phoenix?
No. The independent one.
Oh, Planet S?
Planet S. It was like that.
Are they still around?
I don't know.
Anyone? They are. Okay.
Yeah,
SJ
Planet
says
S.
they are.
I started doing just small little gigs and they were like, they paid $75, but it was cool. And then I also worked, this was back in film, and I worked in a pro printing lab. So I spent all day in the darkroom,
Okay.
all day,
Wow.
but I loved it.
Yeah. That's fun. It's so cool working. I that's when I felt, not to jump in here, but that's when I really fell in love with photography too,
Yeah.
where film photography was in high school and taking a graphic arts class and being in the darkroom and, seeing that image come to literal light.
Yeah.
Like it's a really cool process. It's so fun. Not that I do any of that anymore. I would like to. Do you teach that?
I was going to say, I do teach a little bit workshops here and there, but when I was in Regina, when I still lived in Regina, I was doing pinhole photography class with a group of like 13-year-old girls at the art center, and they made their own camera out of a box, and then they developed them in the darkroom.
That's cool.
And these girls have no idea of like the history of photography, so for them to see like the image come up,
Yeah.
it blew their mind, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
I love it.
Wow.
Everyone needs to experience that.
I think so. Yeah. I can't imagine. Well, there's so many photographers, I'm assuming, especially nowadays, that haven't worked through that process.
Yeah. I think knowing the history of photography is so important.
Yeah.
And the artists who were the firsts, right? And it's the reason why we're sitting here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who inspires you?
I'm inspired by a few different things. There's a few artists I really love. Nan Golden for photography work. She does these very raw portraits of just the people around her. And then Gregory Crutzen, he sets these elaborate photos of spaces and people. They're amazing. But then I'm also inspired a lot by movies, just like watching things, and often music.
Yeah.
There's been a few times with local artists, I'll listen to something that they made and I can picture it. And I just want to make that
Nice.
photo. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I actually really relate to that. We just finished watching Get Back, like the 3-part documentary on the Beatles. And I feel so inspired by like late 60s, even fashion and just the essence of who those people were in that time. And I'm like, oh, I wish I could be there and just experience that and just have a camera in my hand and just, kind of go wild with shooting, even portraiture or more like documentary style. But I think it is so important to expose yourself to not just one sort of medium, but just kind of learning from, it came up in a prior podcast with Molly and just exposing yourself to just even conversations with people and just watching and listening and just that exposure just kind of broadens you as an artist and inspires you.
Totally. I'm lucky that way at the Ramey, being able to photograph and document so many things that they do and experiencing so many different types of artwork and performance and music and installations and everything. It can bring so many new ideas to you.
Definitely. What is your process when you go into a shoot for, say, the Ramey Modern Art Gallery and they want you to do a shoot? What does your creative process look like?
For that kind of stuff, I mean, the creative process on its own is limited because I am documenting someone else's art. So I don't want to put my spin on it. I need, like documenting an exhibition, you can't put filters on that. You need to document it as it is in real life, which can be tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you do this? So what would the task be for you to document an exhibition?
It would be going in. I love talking to the curator and having kind of like a mini run through so they can point out, specific works or details that I might not even have noticed. There's been lots of times where there's artwork on like the top of the ceiling and I wouldn't have noticed it. And then just kind of like photographing the whole space and sections and then specific artworks and just making them look as best as I can without altering them.
Do you find that difficult in a gallery space where you're working with
100%? It's
artificial
difficult.
lighting?
It's horrible.
Yeah. How do you work around that, or what are your techniques?
Each gallery lighting is different too, and often they're mixed bulbs. There's no daylight. So you're usually using like a color bar to make sure the white is white. But those I don't actually find reliable.
A color bar, is that like a gray card?
Like a gray card, but it has all the colors on it.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So you have to use that. Like you need to make the whites white, and you're using a fluorescent light and a tungsten light, so it's like green and orange and yellow. But then make it still look poppy and good.
That sounds challenging. So it's not necessarily like you walk in with your camera and you get your settings right. It's like, it's more technical than that.
It's a lot of editing. Yeah. And I don't light it at all because I think it needs to be shot the way it was
like
lit
how
in
people
the gallery.
will see it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
That would be tricky.
But actually, I don't like it.
Well, you're good at it.
Thanks.
I don't think that would be, my strength for sure.
My first time I did it, I'm sure the photos are shit.
We'll have to look them up.
I don't want to look back.
I'm sure they are not. And what do you have like a certain, do you shoot on manual?
I'm usually AV. Is that AV?
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's aperture priority?
Yeah, I'm usually most concerned about that.
What aperture do you shoot at?
Usually around 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
What lens?
In a gallery, no. It would be as wide as I can.
Okay.
The highest f-stop I can, the lowest ISO, so I'm getting the best. So often the exposures are like a few seconds.
So you're using a tripod.
100%. Yeah.
Okay. So tripod, are you shooting like f16?
If I can. Yeah.
Wow. F16 and then maybe 100 ISO?
Usually around 200.
200. Yeah. Wow. Okay. And so everything is pretty crisp. And then you set it on the tripod and just a long exposure.
Yeah.
Okay. What camera do you use?
Canon. I was just looking at this the other day. I'm not a tech head. It's a Canon 5D Mark III.
Nice.
I think.
Or Mark IV?
4? Yeah, Mark IV.
I don't know why I'm speaking for you.
Well, that's what I use.
Nice.
And
So
for that,
you're
I
a
use a
Canon
24 to 105.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I can get wide.
Do you shoot at 24
24
millimeters?
It depends.
Like, or the widest? No.
It depends on the shot. Yeah. I also have a Sigma 35.
Yeah.
Actually, which is an amazing lens that I barely use, actually.
Yeah. I think I did have that lens, but I found I didn't grab it.
I know.
So but now lately I feel like my go-to lens is like my 24 to 70. I love it. I just use it all the time. And that was my very first lens. And then I went through this stage where everything I wanted was like prime lenses, because that's what I thought that you do as a photographer. And now 10 years later, I'm like, I have everything I need here.
I know.
For the time being. We'll see what comes next. But yeah.
It's a lesson learned. Don't go with the hype. Just use what you want to use.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't need the best camera.
No, definitely not. So what would your advice be to someone that is starting out? I guess that was like a segue into that, but
I would say, what are the things that I've learned? To set boundaries, for sure. Or else, like 20 years down the line, you'll be screwed like I am. You know, I think you talked about in another podcast, like clients texting at 10. No, don't.
yeah.
Or just like, I started doing things like, I noticed that when people emailed me about jobs, I was so like, oh, I got to get back to them right away or else I'll lose the job. And sometimes I would get back, like they email me on a Friday and I get back to them on a Monday and they're like, oh yeah, we gave it away already. And I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, I actually don't want a client that needs me 24/7.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Because I've noticed that with myself too. I feel like at the start I was so desperate for clients. I would do jobs I would never say yes to today.
Yeah.
And I was like, they'd be like, oh, can you do any better on the price? And it's like, yeah, for sure I could. And now I'll say my price. And sometimes I have the conversation with people and I can just tell like how the experience is going to go, you know, like you get like a gut feeling and it's like, you know what, I could take it or leave it. And so you say your price and like, you can tell that they're a little shocked by that. And then you're like, you know, you let the pause happen and you can tell that they want you more now because you're like, it's kind of like you have kind of released any sort of need for them. And it's kind of like I don't know, it's like a cat and mouse game or something. I'm not sure what's happening, but psychologically there's something happening where they kind of like want you more when they can tell that you don't want them.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. And then it's like, well, yeah, then it takes the pressure off. Like if it is a job that you don't necessarily feel inspired about or want, if they're willing to pay you fairly, then it's like, oh, well, yeah, I'll take this and it's a job. And then
it will pay for the other things you want to do that
work.
Doesn't. Yeah.
Exactly.
I kind of look at it that way, is that there's some jobs that are great, not my top pick.
Yeah.
But I won't hate doing it. And it will give me the ability to, you know, work on my own stuff or charge a little less for an artist that has no money.
Exactly.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, I do that as well. I shouldn't say that every job that I do is paid. because a lot of the time there'll be a job that comes up that maybe doesn't pay as much, but really inspires you and really excites you, and maybe there's an opportunity to like be seen in front of a lot of people, and those are the jobs to take on that maybe don't pay. Editorial work is a prime example of that, which you've done some really cool work. Is there a project that stands out, an editorial project?
My very first one, I think, is what made me fall in love with it so much. And I was a baby. It was just a few years out of school. So maybe like 2003 or something like that. And it was for Report on Business magazine, the Globe and Mail. And I got sent to a farm in the middle of Alberta. And it was a story about sour gas wells. And it was this family. It was focused on the dad and the son. And the son was my age at the time, which was, I don't know, mid-20s. And how the sour gas was like killing him. And he walked with a cane, he had oxygen, and they were living in this trailer. And I loved going into someone else's world and trying to document the story for others to read through my images. And I loved it so much.
How did you do that when you were in the space? Did the ideas just come to you? Like, or do you like, how does that work? Because I know for myself, like it'll just, it's like I can already picture it happening. Is that the same for you?
For that, it was working with the art director. So if you have a really great art director, they kind of give you references of kind of the look that they're kind of going for. And what I love is when they also reference my own work, because it's like, oh, okay, you actually know. Yeah. Like, I don't want to copy anyone's work. So you kind of have an idea in mind, but I am most excited when someone says, just shoot it how you shoot it. Because it's like, oh, I get to do my stuff,
freedom.
you know?
Yeah.
And I'm more excited about a job then. I do better. So working with a good art director is really great too.
I love working with art directors. I wish every shoot I could do.
I know.
Because it's like having like this other artist that you can collaborate with that has a vision for like the end product. I think that's so fun. That's what I love about editorial work as well, especially just even working with a team. Yeah. And not just yourself. And then sometimes they, have input that makes you see something different or stretches you a little bit, pushes you, which I also like. Have you ever had a client experience go bad, or what's an experience? Tell me tell me a story.
There has been a few times where I've showed up to shoots, and in the past I've had male second shooters or assistants, and they always go to them as the lead. And they're always like, nope, she's the boss. Yeah. I've had a few things with that.
That seems to happen a lot to us.
Yes. Which is funny because there's so many female photographers.
Yeah. But maybe not necessarily on the world scene as much. Like it was like an old boys club. Yeah. For a long time. Still is to some extent, but yeah, I would say a lot. There's way more women photographers, at least that I know in my own little community.
But I don't think women are shooting the commercial work, the work that pays really well enough.
How do we change that?
I don't know. I have tried a few different times. I noticed when I moved to Saskatoon, I did shoot some like agency work and stuff like that. And that was great, but I don't think it happens enough.
Do you think it's because women aren't as technical as males are, generally speaking?
Maybe.
Like, I'm sorry if there's women that are listening to this that feel like you are technical photographers. That's great. I would love to learn from you. But that's what I find. It's just, you can get really, really elaborate setups, and they're very, very
Yes.
impressive. And, maybe they're a bit more bossy as well. Like there's a confidence that comes with that. And so people, just think that is better.
So we got to figure out a way for them to figure out that doesn't have, that
that's
type
not
of
the way.
photography doesn't mean better. And that there's so many things.
Right.
Or so many different ways to shoot things.
I think that is shifting.
yeah.
I think it is.
A little bit. I think once,
Like Petra Collins,
yeah,
she's kind of changing that in a way.
that whole A24 vibe. I hope it happens here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this might need to be cut. I think we're smart enough
Oh.
for the audience to understand that there's more types of commercial photography. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it does make sense. Yeah, I think it comes down to maybe a confidence thing. And not that we're not confident, but having people believe that we can do it. Maybe.
Yeah. And maybe there are females shooting it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Shout out if you are.
Yeah. I'd love to hear. Email me. Yeah. What are some of your biggest challenges in photography?
I don't know. One thing I've been struggling with lately, and I'd like to get your opinion on this, is how women see themselves. I've been thinking about this the last few years, is that my desire to shoot portraits is diminishing a little bit. And I think it's because I'm so worried about how the women will perceive themselves or even like the photos. And I think I started being very conscious of this a few years ago when I was shooting someone and they asked me to put like a Snapchat filter or something on them. And this person was, I won't say the profession, but they were a very accomplished woman. And it was just like, it made me really sad that someone who was so, she didn't need this filter. Nobody needs them. And I feel that social media and how quickly we look at photos of women particularly, and are easily to judge them, how that is affecting us. And as someone who shoots a lot of women, like, have you seen that kind of happen?
Yeah, I feel like something that's really difficult for me, because I kind of fall under this people pleaser, especially with clients, and you're trying to establish a relationship in a short period of time and make them feel comfortable. And they walk in and they're like, oh, like you can get rid of these wrinkles, right? Or you can fix my neck. And it's like all these like demands that they're putting on you to kind of change the essence of who they are. And I find that really hard because I want to serve them and I want to make them happy, but I don't feel right about it.
No. The only thing I'll remove is a zit. Because it will remove on its own.
So what would you say like to someone that comes into your door, into your studio and they say that to you?
I usually tell people, I will tell people, I'll make you look like you on your best day.
Yeah.
You know how we always
That's a
have those
great thing to
days
say.
that like are extra feeling good.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at my portfolio, you can see that I'm not the person who's going to put a crazy filter or not a filter, but just you're going to look like you. And I don't want to do anything else. But it's such a bigger question of having us as women appreciate ourselves as we are. And where does that even start?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a deep thought. I think there's a lot of baggage that comes along, especially depending on your age too. Like, I think the world is changing. I feel like the younger generations are going to have an easier time dealing with that and accepting it to some extent. Like in some ways, maybe harder with they grew up with social media and that sort of thing. But, I remember I'm a child of the 80s, grew up, in the 90s and looking at magazines and seeing like flawless skin or it was very much like a altered reality.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's affected like my body image and it's hard to like break out of that. I feel like there is this sort of push, a societal push that's, allowing us to have this more self-acceptance, even with campaigns like Nix or Dove. And well, there's so many now that are kind of like pushing that sort of change and shift to just being okay with like who we are and being okay with not being okay with a woman, but just growing into who you are and the power that you have.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of working out in my own work. I'm trying to work out reactions to these ideas that are happening and how I can put more pressure on the viewer, because I think it's a very vulnerable thing to post your photo or even have your photo taken.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're losing the power, and so much power is given on the viewer to easily just swipe or judge or whatever. So I've been kind of looking back at old photos and making them super dark, just ways that will take the viewer a few more seconds to actually figure out what's going on and just change the emphasis and the power of the photo of the viewer. Give them less power.
Have you seen any other artists do similar work that would inspire that?
No, I don't think so.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's like unique to you.
Yeah. And with the other work, I make dioramas of weird situations or what have you. And then I photograph people and I superimpose them in the photo of the diorama.
Cool.
To create these stories. So it's it's a weird mix of reality and fiction, but a portrait that I've superimposed together. So I'm working on more of those.
That's neat. Would you ever put it in a display or a gallery exhibit?
Hopefully, yeah. I'm having a show at Paved Arts in 2026, 27.
Okay.
So a lot of those I think will be in there.
Oh, nice.
And working on new ones, yeah.
Where can we learn more about this?
They're on my website.
Oh, they are
yeah,
on your
in my
website.
personal
Okay.
work, the Uncanny Valley.
Okay.
And it's another way I'm trying to give myself and the subject more power rather than the viewer. So the viewer has to look a little bit more to figure out what's going on.
I love that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I should stick you on one.
Okay. Anytime. I guess I really admire how deep you go to bring out these ideas and processes. And there's a lot of thought that goes into it, which I really admire. And I actually want to do more of in my own future, like creative work, and really, because I feel like maybe I don't spend enough time on that.
Yeah. I think I'm lucky because of the work that I do. A lot of my friends and a lot of people around me, my partner, staff, they're all artists. And so you learn different ways of thinking and different ways of interpreting ideas and how different ideas can come to life. So I'm lucky that way. Yeah. And being in art school was divided in half. So half was the design side. It was the graphic designers and then the photographers. And then the other side was the fine art side. And it was all the crazy artists. And so being able to I appreciate so much the collaboration process and learning from different artists and just having them around and just being with creative people. It's a huge thing.
Do you ever collaborate with them?
With different artists, a lot of musicians, which has been lovely and really fun. Architects, and even photographing artwork for artists, painters and stuff like that.
What advice would you give to someone that is starting out in photography now?
Take care of yourself. Like, with the boundaries, like I said before, but also sleep. You don't have to work 24/7.
Yeah.
And don't listen to the emails you get about exposure. It's like, oh, can you do this for free? It'll be really good exposure. Screw it.
Yeah.
You need to pay the bills. Unless it's something you are beyond excited and will add to your portfolio.
Right.
But generally, it's just a way of trying to get you to work for free. We don't get benefits, so why should we work for free?
No. And I feel like that comes with maturity too, is kind of, or at least I can speak for myself. Now I really trust my gut a lot more. I listen to it and I really lean into it. And, hearing that as a 22-year-old, I probably would have no idea what that means. I was just not very maybe self-aware. But I think with maturity, there comes that awareness, and even being able to read an email and know right away if a project is maybe legit or, I don't know. There's so much, like, you can just read into so much just energy-wise through an email or just meeting somebody that you can, I guess that would be my advice, would just be to like spend the time to listen, to get quiet, to listen, to know if something feels right. And if it doesn't, that's your answer.
Yep. And it's okay to say no.
It is okay to say no. And there's so much power that comes from saying no. I had no idea.
And there's so much power that comes from saying yes, like not being scared to try something new.
Exactly.
Like with making this short film, I've wanted to do film for so long, and I've done it little bits here and there. And it's like, it took, these specific circumstances for me to do it, but I could have done it years ago.
Yeah. There's so much that fear does hold you back from. And a lot of time, like don't touch a flame, obviously, or something stupid like that. But, there's safety things, but a lot of the time that fear is telling you to almost do something. It's a very complicated situation because you're like, is this fear like my gut, or is it just like, I don't know. I think it can be both. Like you can be excited and fearful at the same time, and that's your answer.
Yes. Yeah.
But if you're fearful and you like feel sick,
then don't do it.
Yeah, exactly. I think, spending that time to get quiet, to listen to that sort of intuition is so important. Yeah. What do you see for yourself in the next 5, say 10 years?
I'd say the last 10 years, I haven't focused on the work I want to do as much as I want. So I'm really trying to make that switch, and I'm going to try really, really hard to just do my own work more. And so I hope, 5-10 years down the line, I have more work that it's like just mine and that I'm proud of.
Nice.
I really hope.
Yeah. Do you have any fear around aging in photography?
100%. Yeah. I mean, I don't have a pension. I think about it quite often. In a few years I'm 50. What does that mean? Especially with someone who likes to shoot the work that doesn't pay that much. Yeah. So a friend of mine, me and a friend she's in the same situation kind of. We think a lot about passive income. So I do stock photography, and as I can grow my stock photography, that has been more of, okay, that will help me get through when I start shooting less. I mean, the more photographers that come out, the less I'll be needed. Whatever, So
Yeah. That's something that comes up a lot, maybe more privately. I think people are kind of scared to talk about it publicly.
Yeah.
But I know amongst like my friend groups and in my close conversations, that's something that comes up a lot, because in some ways it does feel like maybe a young person's game, or you feel like the young have the ideas, and are they going to want to hire someone that's older? Like, these are the fears that we have. And I think the answer that always seems to come up in the end of those conversations is to lean into what is unique to you.
Yeah.
And your art will speak for itself, and people will always be attracted to something that comes from a special, like, unique place, an authentic place, and to not fear it. I think we all fear aging. We all do, right?
Oh,
like, that's
for
like
sure.
a human condition.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Well, and I want to get, as I get older, obviously you care about your income and stuff like that, but I also don't want to be shooting things that make me miserable.
Yeah. Or killing yourself to do it.
Exactly.
Like, photography is hard on your body, especially
That's why
if
you don't
you're
want to shoot weddings
lugging
anymore.
gear or
Yeah. I don't want to work 20 hours a day.
No. It's hard. It's really hard. And
It is.
and the young can have that, maybe.
Sure. Go for it.
Take it.
And I loved it when I was younger.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
I think as you get older too, or just for me, your relationships around you become, they've always been important, but there's a different kind of importance on them. And I don't want to work all the time and not have memories with the people I love. So I need to figure out a way to make it all work, but then also retire at some point in my life.
Charge more. Work
Yeah,
less.
I know, right? Does it work?
I hope so. Trying to figure that out. I guess the last thing I wanted to talk about, you kind of dabbled into it there a little bit, talking about the passive income, was licensing images.
Yeah.
How did you get into that, and what's your advice to get into that?
I started doing this maybe 8 years ago, 10 years ago, and I do it through Stocksy. And I was one of their group of first photographers, so it was right when they started. Have you heard of Stocksy?
No.
They are based in Victoria, so it's a Canadian agency, and their model is very different than normal. It's very artist-centered, and it's actually a co-op.
Okay.
So we all paid like $1, and we're part of this co-op. So we get to vote on all the decisions, and usually the stock agencies, the photographers actually only get a small percentage. We get half.
Wow.
And then if extra rights are bought, we get all of that. So it can be lucrative. It really helped me out during COVID.
Nice.
Because
no one was shooting,
and they needed photos. So that was very helpful.
How much can someone make off that?
Well, if you're active on it, like I was making about, I don't know how many photos I have. Not too sure. You can look me up and find out. Make a few grand a month. But
That's
there's photographers
amazing.
who have like 10,000 photos. Like I might have 500.
Wow.
So I
That
don't know
is
what they're
great.
making, but it's probably a lot.
That's the way to go for
I
sure.
know. So don't be scared of stock. It has changed.
Yeah.
And the thing I like about Stocksy is that they really focus on like authentic photos, not overly produced or anything like that. And they do like creative reports. So they're already doing the research for what's trending and coming up. And they put a focus on shooting everybody. And yeah, I love it.
So can anyone join this?
You have to apply.
Apply. Okay.
Yeah. And with any agency, I know what I did when I first applied is that I applied with photos of things that I actually want to shoot. Because you have this opportunity to make money from shooting what you want to shoot. So don't apply with something that you aren't interested in.
That's good advice. And I think that shines in the good work that you see. It's like, oh, someone was inspired to take this. It wasn't just like they put a can of soup in front of them and took that photo. It's like, no, they had this vision in mind. And I always feel like that truth comes out in photos, the passion.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. You can tell if someone doesn't want to be shooting it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I use it. So some clients who maybe I really want to work with, but can't afford me, I talk to them about doing stock photography. So I will do their shoot for them. And then maybe in like half a year, when they're done with the photos, they've given me the rights and I upload them to Stocksy, and then I can make money from them. So it's like a win-win for both.
That's an interesting way of going about it.
And some shoots for a story. There was one that I did in Regina, just this girl shopping in my friend's shop, and I've probably made 10 grand from that shoot.
Wow.
And she texted me, someone had, her billboard was in like Times Square.
Stop.
Like the photos. You don't know where the photo ends up going.
That's so cool.
But you can, if you're smart about it, you can make some money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the important thing too, though, you can't just like take pictures of strangers and not have their permission.
No,
right?
you need a release for everything.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people are scared of stock, partly because, do you remember the Friends episode with Joey?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
What was that?
He was on a herpes commercial?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Classic. I love that.
Hopefully you won't end up in a herpes commercial.
Yeah, hopefully not. Well, this was so awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Not only meet you finally, but to chat with you and get a sense of who you are and who you are as an artist.
Thanks.
I think you're pretty fabulous. So
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Artist Date. If you enjoyed it, please take a moment to subscribe and leave a rating. It really helps more creatives like you discover the show. Don't forget to follow along on Instagram at Artist Date Podcast for behind-the-scenes updates, inspiring content, and more. New episodes drop every Tuesday. Can't wait to connect with you again soon.